What have you been taught about manhood? Yeah.
It's like, you ever had like a coach who will tell you like talent will only take you so far, but hard work gets you really across? It's the same principle.
Right.
It's the exact same principle. So
Yeah.
you can have the ability and the capability to do something really, really good. Whether you actually put the work in to hone whatever it is and do it, that's what differs boy from men to me.
That idea about self-care. You say you put on your own mask first on the airplane. I always say to put on your own mask first.
Yeah.
It's really hard to help somebody else when you're dead.
Because like at that point, and I hear that all the time, is it selfish? Like people think that's real.
They think it's for real.
Like,
Exactly.
They take that serious. Like,
as men, I think we have to learn that, yeah, it is good to be selfless. That is a very positive thing. But I think it's also a very positive thing to be in a condition emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, socially, relationally,
yes,
where you have something to offer and you recognize that I have something to offer because you are worth fighting for. A few years ago, I asked some young men in my mentoring program, do we really need dads?
Yeah.
And there's 60% of the boys in the room said no. Fathers were unnecessary. Welcome to another edition of Real Life Matters, where we are talking with real life people, dealing with real life issues and coming up with real life solutions. My name is Jason Perry and I am your host for Real Life Matters, and so glad that you're choosing to join with us on this podcast today. So today I have with me a very, very special friend. I don't know if he knows that, but he's a very special friend. My friend, Mr. Tiny, Cam Kross. I'll introduce him a little bit more later. But today we're going to be talking about this topic of changing hoods, moving from boyhood to manhood. So I'm excited about this conversation and excited that you're going to be joining us today. So, Dr. Cam.
Doctors.
Dr.
Hilarious.
Cam. You Dr. Cam now. So I met Cam as let me see if I get it right, Cam, help me out. You were probably a 15, 16-year-old sophomore in high school.
Very accurate.
Is that right?
Yes.
When I first met you?
Very accurate, yeah.
Yeah.
I was 16. Yeah, sophomore year, I think, is when you came to Chicago Christian.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And so I'm going to tell you this story about Cam.
Oh no.
Yeah, I got lots of stories to tell.
I did not know I was coming for that. I am officially nervous.
No,
all right. All right. No, I'll take it. Come on.
Okay. No, it's all good. It's all good. But this is the thing that I noticed. I'm here at this school and got all these kids running around, and I noticed that this one person, there was always a crowd. Always a crowd with this one guy. I don't care what else was happening. There was always a crowd with this one guy. And he would say stuff, and everybody was like, Cam. And I'm like, what's the deal with this guy? So one day, I think we were just talking, and I was just telling Cam, I said, Cam, you're a leader. And he's like, I'm not a leader. He refused to accept my acknowledgement that he was a leader. So one day, I'm talking to him, and he tells me, he's always talking about this, I think it was your nephew. I think you had a nephew or
my little cousin.
Your cousin.
Yeah,
it was your cousin. Yeah. And so he said, my cousin got in trouble. I think he got kicked out of school. He got in trouble at school or something. Yeah. And I said, what did he do? He said, he hit somebody. And so I remember Cam was telling me, yeah, what are you doing? Why are you hitting people? He said, because you told me to. And he said, I never told you to hit nobody. He said, yes, you did. And he went through the whole list of what you told him to do. And you were like,
yeah.
Oh, you were listening?
Yeah. I had to eat that cake. I was sitting there, I said all of that? Okay. Well.
Yeah. And he did exactly what you told him.
He did exactly what I told him. I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Yeah. And then so from that point on, you were MLC. You were my leader, Cam. And so that was as a sophomore. And over the next 2 years, we kind of more established that relationship over the next 2 years. And
yes, sir.
I think you began to take seriously what I was saying in leadership. I even remember a few times me coming to you saying, I need you to handle something for me at school with some situations that was going on. And I said, let them know either they don't listen to you, they got to come to me because I knew they would listen to you. And so I think that was kind of, and then this has been now 8 years. We've been in this
Yeah,
relationship.
it
It's
has
been
been.
8 years.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So
Been a fun ride. I've
yeah,
enjoyed it.
it's
I
been
have
good.
enjoyed it.
One of the reasons that Cam is sitting here, you heard, I'm not like you heard me talking with Coach CJ,
Yes. Yes.
and you shared some things with me, your excitement and how much you enjoyed the podcast. But as I listened to your response on the podcast, to the podcast, I thought, okay, why am I talking to you on the phone? I need to have you on camera.
Yes,
And so
no. I got to sit down and watch the whole episode. Well, not watch. I listened to it because I was driving to work. And while listening to it, just a lot of perspectives resonated with where I'm at in life currently and where a lot of guys my age are probably at currently. The questions that they have and the struggles that they face. I think you guys did a really good job of touching on a lot of that stuff. And so just as a friend, I'm like, you know what? I have to give flowers where they're due. So I just called to say, hey, you're doing great. Keep doing it. And our conversations are never short. So
yeah.
so it just, ran from there. But no, there was a lot of good stuff in that episode. Very good stuff.
So let's kind of chop it up a little bit about that. I got a few questions. You might have some questions you want to ask me, and we'll just kind of go from there. But
All right.
I want to start with something. I'm not sure. I remember the first time I shared this mantra with you and a few of the other guys, Donovan and Keyshawn and these other guys, because we would have lunch together.
Yep.
Our relationship factory. We would have lunch and talk about men stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was supposed to last for a few weeks, and then y'all wouldn't let me go. Y'all came looking for me every lunch, and I had to have lunch with y'all every week.
Yes, you did.
But but this was the mantra that I gave you all that I continue to use. This is the basis for this topic today of changing hoods, moving from boyhood to manhood. And it's this: boys play, young men prepare, and men perform.
Yeah.
But when young men fail to prepare, they become men who continue to play.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I want to start with. And you've been hearing me say this since you were 16 years old. How does that hit you now as a 24-year-old? Been hearing this for 8 years. How did you hear it then? How do you hear it? How does it hit you now?
Hearing it then, you don't understand how significant it is. You respect it, but at that time, I'm still boy. My time is to play. Yeah. Therefore, that's what I'm going to do during this time.
Yeah.
We'll cross those bridges when we get to them. The significance comes in when you go from boy to young man and the expectations change.
Yeah.
And then you go from young man to man and the expectations change again. So hearing it then, you don't hold it to as high of a level of significance as you do now. 24 years old now, I would consider myself at the end of my preparation and the beginning of my performance. That's exactly where I would put myself.
At the end of your preparation, at the beginning of your performance.
I would come to the end of my preparation and to the beginning of my performance. I say that because I am 1 year removed from college.
Okay.
So for the first 23 years of my life is school, sports, stay out of trouble. I have 3 occupations, really. That's it. Very, very simple. Stay out of trouble, do your homework, school. So my life that whole time is very structured. There's always something I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be here for this time, here for that time, whatever. 24 years old. Now the place that I have to be is work. So it's using everything that was structured and bringing it to another structured place. Difference is the expectations, because now you're a man. So things change naturally. Expectations change upon you, and how you view things change. So it does, I don't know, it carries a lot of different weight, just depending on everyone's a little different though. So
Okay, man, you just said a lot. I want to break that down a little
go
bit
for
more, okay? At the end of preparation,
it. Hmm.
what do you think you could have prepared for better? How could you have prepared better during that stage?
Again, because everyone's different. Because my preparation stage, I'm looking at that age wise, I would say 18 to 23 or
Okay.
17 to 23. A lot of things happened in that short 5 years. Pandemic happened in those 5 years. A lot of changes in schools. I went to two universities. So a lot of things changed. I would say, me personally, understanding that I am only a man, I'm only human. There's only so much that I can do. I hold myself to a lot of high expectations and try to become a lot of things, or try to evolve to a lot of things. And so I think I'm now at that point where I'm figuring out everything that I want, or everything that I may be chasing, isn't going to happen tomorrow. Another thing I would say that I could have prepared more for is, I don't know if you could prepare for it, but it kind of goes along with not falling in love with like potential.
Hmm.
Falling in love more with work and actually working on stuff, opposed to just the idea of having potential.
Not falling in love with potential.
Hmm.
Unpack that.
As a boy, you play. There are people who invest time in you. Those people will tell you or try to lead you to certain places. Whether that be, I'm talking like teenager, right? So whether that be, you should go to college. You hear that a lot. You get the questions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Freshman year, you don't get them. Sophomore year, you don't get them. That junior and senior year, hey, what are we doing? Because it's coming up. So you hear a lot of expectations starting to come your way. With expectations, people view you as potential.
Mm-hmm.
What is he good at? What is she good at? What is he not good at? Where's his strong suits? What are not his strong suits? What can he work on? I think all of that is kind of based on like potential. And potential, if you really break it down, is simply just like the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the possibility of doing something good. I could use my personal story. So I got a lot of people would tell me I'm good at track. You know, I was a track athlete. I went to school for it. Got a scholarship, went to school for free, all that. Great. But the whole time before going to college, all I would hear from college coaches and my coaches and recruiters is how much potential I have. And they kind of leave you with potential as if it's just this broad statement, but they never really give you direction with the word potential. That's why I feel like it just means you could be good, you can do something, but whether you do it or not, that's where that love is, where you fall in love with the work. In my preparation era, I had to leave the word potential behind me and start to fall in love with the work of what it is.
Man, that's good, man. You dropping some knowledge, man. I need a mic. I need to drop a mic. You spitting some
No, I
knowledge,
think
bro.
that's the best way I can explain it. In the preparation, in boy, you hear a lot about how much potential you have. Once you go into that preparation stage, you find out if you can live up to the potential. You hear that a lot. So while you're living up to it, you have to work for it. And once you do the work within that preparation time, it will help you learn how to perform. So that's why I feel like I'm at the end of my preparation, where I've done a lot of the work of learning, of understanding what my role is. Now it's time to play your part. Play your part.
One of the things I said to you all often in those last 2 years of your high school year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say really 2 years. The first year, Yeah, we just kind of danced around each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I really invested the last 2 years of high school. It was a
Mm-hmm.
much more intentional
Yes.
investment. One of the things that I would say to you all often was, you are men with training wheels.
Yeah. Very, very accurate. Yes.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
men with training wheels.
Yes.
You're not, you say obviously you're pseudo men
Mm-hmm.
because you got that some of that potential, but you're not ready to run on your own
Right.
yet, but you're not also not on a trike.
Right.
You know, and so what keeps young men at that point from really leaning into the work that's necessary to really be able to transform that work product
Mm-hmm.
into production, into performance? What keeps young men from owning that work?
It can be fear.
Okay.
It could be arrogance,
Mm.
because that one was mine. I'll admit I heard potential so often, right? Because I do a little bit of everything in high school. I'm in music, I'm in theater, improv, I'm a performer in that realm. And then I do the sports stuff. He's not stupid. He's actually got decent grades. So you hear all of the potential. So when you hear it so often, you're like, well, if I'm good, then I'm good.
Mm.
There's no need for me to have to work as hard as everyone else. It's not until you surround yourself with people with the exact same amount of potential as you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you realize, oh, there are other people like this. Okay, I should probably start working now.
Yeah.
It can also be fear, though. You want to get something, or you want to get away from something, or you want to chase something, and you're fearful that you won't be good enough to do it.
Mm.
And I've been in that situation as well. The fear might weigh a little harder on you, though, than the arrogance, for sure. Because fear can come within you. It can come from examples around you.
Mm-hmm.
It can come from environment. And as many people who may tell you that you have potential, you also have that many people of naysayers saying, hey, man, you're not that good. You're not going to do that.
Right.
So, you know, that boy phase, I think it really matters of who's pouring into you. And what's around you, for sure. Because, I mean, environment is kind of everything.
Yeah.
Like me, I was blessed. I was surrounded by a lot of good and bad examples of what men look like.
Yeah.
So 16-year-old Cam, I kind of just had the option of looking at the men that I could see myself wanting to be like that. And then I can go ask them, hey, how did you get here? And of course, they're not gonna be able to tell me like a straight up and down game plan, but they can help me walk through certain steps when I get to certain steps.
Yeah.
That I need help with. But for those who don't have those sources around them, it can get really tough. It can get really, really tough.
So I think you're saying something that's really, really powerful. For a lot of people, the label of potential becomes solidified as performance.
Mm-hmm.
And you confuse potential with performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you ever had like a coach who will tell you like talent will only take you so far, but hard work gets you really across. It's the same principle.
Right.
It's the exact same principle. So
Yeah.
you can have the ability and the capability to do something really, really good. Whether you actually put the work in to hone whatever it is and do it, that's what differs boy from men to me.
Yeah.
That's what differs the boys from the men.
Yeah. That KD, Kevin Durant, I think I don't know if he was the first one who said it, but he was the first one who I heard say it. Hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard.
Yeah.
It is important that you hear potential, because if you don't hear potential, then you don't even know that it's a possibility.
Right.
If you don't also hear the work that goes with it, then it becomes a pipe dream. I think one of the things that I've often said is that too many people see the goal, but they don't see the mountain that the goal is at. They see the flag at the top of Mount Everest, and they say, I want to get there.
Yeah.
But they don't see the mountain that you got to climb to get there.
That's tough. That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt right there. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you see the goal without the grind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, especially now.
Yeah.
especially now. Oh my goodness, especially now. You have small computers in the palm of your hand, and
Yes.
all you see
Is
is
the goal.
the goal. And then we have, oh my goodness, it's so bad now to because you see the goal, and then because everything about what we are is so instant gratification focused,
Yeah.
like it has to happen right now,
Right.
you despise the mountain. It's
Yeah.
not only that you don't, you know what I'm saying? Like you despise it because you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's gonna take so much work,
Right.
and I could just go get the goal. You can't just go
Yeah.
get the goal. And I think that that's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
Um, Especially with our world, social media alone will force it down your face. Just
Yeah.
seeing so many images and so many videos of this person in this house and having this car and this much money. And
I remember years ago, I was doing a mentoring program. Young man said something to me like, he wants to have money so he can be like Kanye. And I said, money does not make him Kanye. Kanye has money because he's Kanye.
mhm,
Other words, it's his talent
yeah, it's
and
him.
go it's him.
Yes,
It's
yes.
not the money
The
does
money
not
is the
make you
yeah. The
Kanye.
money is a product of him being himself.
Exactly.
Right.
He's him.
Yes, he's him.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that so many people, all they see is the end result. They see
Yeah.
the end goal,
Mhm.
but they have no idea of what it took in order to
Absolutely.
get there.
I mean, you could think of any celebrity, athlete, anything like that. All we really get to see is the product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we get to see Denzel in movies. We
Right.
we didn't see Denzel if he went to acting schools,
Right.
if he went to, do the plays, and we didn't see the walk. We kind of just get to see the product of what it is.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I want that.
Right.
Again, it's against a potential. People will tell you like, hey, you can get this goal. Not a lot of people will tell you how to get
How to
there.
get there.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So
I saw a I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw a little bit of a clip of LeBron talking to Steve Nash. I think it's called Mind of the Game or something like that. It's a
okay,
podcast they're doing.
okay,
But the little clip that I heard yesterday, um, LeBron was saying, I've seen so many guys that are all stars one year and then you never hear from them again. And he said, and you look at this guy, regardless of what you think about him, he has operated at a high level of excellence for 20 years with very little drop off, especially when you can see where he is. But what he
yes,
said was, these guys don't understand what it takes to get there. They get there, but they don't understand what it takes to stay there.
hmm,
And they're not willing to do the work in order to fulfill the potential,
hmm,
you
yeah,
know. And that is, I think that's the differentiator. You said something else that's important about the difference in terms of why people don't work, and you said fear. And when you said that, I thought of one of my favorite quotes, and I just looked it up. I'm going to just read it. It's from Marianne Wilkinson, and I think you've heard me say this before. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate.
hmm,
Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, or fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
hmm,
But I think that first thing, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
yeah,
I believe that a lot of people are not so much afraid of failure as much as they are afraid of success.
absolutely.
Success means
But
I can get to the mountain.
success means work.
Success means
Success
work.
means work.
And it means continual
But
work in order
yes,
to
it
maintain.
means consistency.
Yeah.
It means uncomfortable situations, constantly uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
And it means maintaining. So yeah, it is fearful because
Yeah.
it's like, if it don't work, I mean, you don't lose nothing. Imagine it work. Now you got to keep on working to make it. It's kind of like when you're expected to win,
Yeah.
almost. Like if you're a team and y'all been blowing out everybody, you know, here come the championship. We're all sitting here expecting you to win.
Right.
So anything other than dominance will be viewed as failure.
I heard a coach say this recently. He said he took over, I think it was a high school team. He said they had been like 0-12 the year before.
Mm.
The next year, they won a couple of more games. By his 5th year, they went to the state championship game and they lost. And he said there were hundreds of people at the school when they got back after they lost the championship game. He says 2 years later, they got back to the championship game and they lost again. And there was nobody at the school when they came back for the second game. And he said the difference was the expectations had raised so high is that winning is not enough. No, now you have to win the championship.
Yes.
And I think it's it's easier to be the lovable losers. It's easier to be a person with potential. But when I started getting A's, listen, the peak is a lot smaller than the ascent or the descent, the slope.
Yep.
The peak is a lot smaller. It's a whole. It's only a few people that can stand on the peak. A whole lot of people can stand on the wall of potential, on that rise of potential. It's a whole lot of people can stand on that. And the descent into failure, a whole lot of people can stand on that. But that peak of eliteness, it's a very small platform.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of effort to stay balanced there. And a lot of people are fearful of the effort that it takes. So I think that's one thing. I think another thing in terms of that preparation stage is who is speaking into you. Because if nobody is telling you you deserve to be there and you have the potential, and here is the plan for getting there and to staying there, and who I am willing to support you there. If you don't have those people speaking into you, that's also going to impact your ability to stay on there.
It's hard to get those people because they've never been there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're surrounded, just said it, it's easy to be lovable losers.
Yeah.
There's strength in numbers there because we're all here.
Yeah.
We're all common. We all do the same thing.
Yeah.
So there's comfort here because there's so many of us here. When you start to separate yourself, people look at you different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people look at you, they look at you different because it's like, who does he think he is?
Right.
He think he all that.
Yeah.
You start hearing that immediately. And then now you're debating in your head like, dang, am I carrying myself too high?
Yeah. What's too high?
Come on. What's too high?
What's too high? Yeah.
Keep going. So, it definitely depends on who's pouring into you. I don't know. I kind of fell in love with being different young because my family and I are different. So I'm kind of the awkward one out. Not in a bad way, just all my family are athletes. Everybody's athlete. I was an athlete, not because I wanted to be, but because I wanted to fit in with the family.
Okay.
I wanted to fit the image. But my passions were more along art and music. That's what I like to do. So when I went and did those things, it wasn't that my family didn't want to support it, but they've never been in that situation. They don't know how to tell me to prepare for a concert.
Right.
Because they've never done it.
Right.
They don't know how to tell me, to breathe properly when I'm speaking on stages because they've never done it.
Right.
They don't know how to tell me to get over stage fright because they've never been on the stage.
Right.
So it depends on not just who's willing to pour into you, but what they've been through.
Right.
So for me, again, I was blessed and I was comfortable enough to go find people who have been in those situations.
Yeah.
To then go talk to them and say, hey, how do I navigate this right here? And again, you get blessed with like teachers or coaches, whatever have you. But it definitely depends on what they're pouring into you, the willingness for them to want to see you happy at whatever you're going for. All of those things definitely matter.
Yeah.
They play a very key role in the growth and that void of preparation. Because when it's time to perform, when the light's on, the light's on.
Right.
When it's time, it's time.
I think that's why I use that phrase, changing hoods, because we're all in a hood, just depending on what hood you're in.
Yes.
Okay.
Very true.
So from that, when you move from boyhood to manhood, nobody is asking for your credentials. Nobody is asking your credentials. You live here, you must
have did something.
You did something. You're here.
You're here. Yeah.
And so, if once you move into that hood, nobody is going to ask you about your preparation. They're only going to ask you about your performance, and you will be judged on the basis of your performance. Nobody cares whether or not you've been prepared for it. And so you got to be ready for that. And I think that's why a lot of people end up playing, because they have not been prepared and nobody's really holding them accountable. But you will be held accountable.
I was just about to say, one way or another, it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. And then I'm not gonna lie, there's a factor in preparation. You got to prepare for the right things. And you need to know what you're preparing for.
Talk about that some more. What are you preparing for? How do you know?
Everyone's different. So I'll use an example. You're a young boy. Your mother gives you toys to play with. Let's say you're 6. You're going to play with those toys till you're about 7 or 8. And then a new toy going to come out. And you're going to want that. Then another one when you're about 12 and you're going to want that. It's kind of the same thing. You don't keep the same things with you as you grow. In your preparation, your mindset changes. You don't keep the same mindset. As a 24-year-old, I don't think like an 18-year-old anymore. If I do, it leads to playing, because that's what I did when I was 18.
Yeah.
So in that preparation phase, you have to figure out what's appropriate to stay and what is appropriate to go. And that, I think, is where you learn what to prepare for and how to properly prepare. Because you have to figure out what's essential. But that depends on your goal or what you're chasing or what you're after.
There's some ancient wisdom that says this: when I was a child, I thought like a child. Looked like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. And so the question is, during that stage, I think this is a key thing for young men, is they are in that preparation stage in high school, and young men, whatever age you're in, whatever grade you are at that point or age. What are you exposed to? So your exposure will also tell you what you need to be preparing for. So if you are limiting your exposure, if you're limiting your vision to a very small world, then that's how big your world is going to be.
I think I talked to you about when you're young. I can speak for me, more or less low income minorities. That's who I'll speak for. Because when you're in an environment, that's what just came to my mind when you said a small world. So if you're limited to just your block or just your neighborhood, you think the peak of that is probably having a nice or decent home in this neighborhood. If every limitation about you or everything around you is just telling you pay your rent on time, hypothetically, all you're going to think that you have to prepare for is to pay your rent on time. You're not going to think, eventually, I could save and not have to stay here. I can go somewhere else.
Right.
So it definitely matters as far as, again, environment and exposure. But I think I think exposure has to do more with not necessarily what you're around, but I feel like exposure might be more what you hear.
Yeah, I think it's both. But you're right, because you know what? You may not be around it, but you may Here,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's something beyond this.
It's harder to see stuff because you may actually have like limitations. They could be financial, mental, emotional, whatever. So you might actually have limitations, things that keep you bound
Right.
in that space.
Right.
Hearing or seeing on screens of stuff
Mhm.
is like, oh dang, that exists.
Right.
I can go do that. Like my job, I'm allowed to travel a little bit more. But for the first 23 years of my life, you asked me what have I seen? Chicago.
Mhm.
You know why? That's where I'm at.
That's right.
That's my limitation. That's my ground. I didn't know that there was Atlanta. Of course I know it, but I've never been.
You didn't experience
Exactly.
it.
I didn't experience Dallas. I didn't experience LA. I didn't experience New York that much. I didn't experience Philadelphia. You know, and this is just, then you realize this is just in this country, but there's a whole bunch of other countries in this continent alone.
Yeah.
And then there's 7 continents.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there that you are completely ignorant to. So
I think about this. Think about my own life. Okay.
Mhm.
So I grew up in a community where the median income was $9,000. The median income. Okay. 17 miles from a grocery store, dirt roads. You know, unemployment was probably 50%.
Mm.
Okay. Now, I just remember living in that community, thinking about when I went back to that community to work after college, hearing kids' concept of work. And I literally heard a girl say this to me. Her concept of work was going to the mailbox to pick up the check, the government assistance check. That was work. And I was like, wow, that is your world, is leaving the house to get the check. Okay. Now, on the other hand, I was 7 before we had indoor plumbing in our house. We had an outhouse and we had a hand pump for water. And, you know, the toilet was a bucket, a chair with a hole in it and a bucket beneath it. And, you know, all of those things like that. My brother went off to college from that. But I look at my family, of my siblings. My brother becomes vice president of 3 different major airlines. My sister, 2 master's degrees, master teacher for the state of Illinois, overseeing a multi-million-dollar budget. My other sister, running a department at the University of Louisville. Okay, another brother, stockbroker. Another brother owns his own construction business.
Mm-hmm.
I have a master's, written 14 books. How do you get all of that out of this place with a median income of $9,000?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you why. It was exposure.
Mm.
It was exposure. And it wasn't because it was all over the place, but we watched my mother go back to school with 7 kids to get her nursing degree. I remember the first thing I remember my mother buying me was a set of encyclopedias. And I got that set of I know that kids right now, 17, have no idea what an encyclopedia is. It's different than Wikipedia.
Right.
Okay. But as a physical, it's an encyclopedia, Wikipedia, not the same thing. Okay.
Right.
But an encyclopedia was a set of books. And I remember going to that book, looking up. The first time I got that book, I went straight to the P's and I looked up Perry because I wanted to see if my name. But I learned about, wait a minute, a black man named Perry, who was the first one on the North Pole. And I learned about this animal called a ptarmigan that was a bird that turned white in the winter in the snow so that it was hidden. But it was ptarmigan was spelled with a P. Well, I learned all of that stuff. Now I got this whole world in front of me through these books. Mm-hmm. And because of that exposure, I learned that, wait a minute, I'm not limited to here. I'm not limited to this little space. Mm-hmm. I can get to all of that stuff. So during that season of your life, it is important that you overcome fear. It is important that you overcome the tyranny of potential.
Yeah. Yes.
Because you can begin to believe, because I got so much potential, I don't have to work.
Do not be imprisoned by your potential. I tell my little brother.
Wait a minute. Stop. Hold on a second. Say that again. Do not become imprisoned by your potential.
Yes.
That's a good statement,
Do
man.
not do it. I tell my little brother that all the time because potential it's a great thing. Faith without works is dead, right?
Yeah.
Potential without works is dead.
Yeah.
It's the same concept. You have all this potential, all this possibilities. You have the encyclopedia. So there's a world out there, right?
Right.
You were reading about it. You could have just said, I'm gonna just be comfortable right here
Yeah.
in this little small space. I'm gonna read about all the cool stuff that there is, but I can't go see it. It's just right here in this book.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so you can hold yourself there if you want, but when you add work to the potential, and just give it a shot and see how far it takes you, and then you get to a new place. For me, that new place was college. I didn't want to go to college, actually. I really didn't. I
Yeah.
did not want to go to school. I wanted to go to the military. Reason being was because I have a good relationship with my father, but I have a lot of father-like role models around me. You're one of those people for me. You know, so like guys that I'll call and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this thing right now and I don't know how to do it, whatever. Two of those people, one is my Uncle Eddie, another one is a guy called Pops. His name's Ray, but he's Donovan's father, dear friend of mine. I admire these guys. So I'm like, I wonder how they got their life the way they got it. One thing I noticed in common, they both did time in the military. So in my mind, I kind of equated like, maybe if I go to the military, I can figure stuff out. And then I'm hearing a lot of, because at this point, I don't know what I want to do in my life. I don't. But they're telling me like, hey, if you want to go to school, the military will pay for it. And, you know, got to work. They're going to help you get a home, right, right, right. I'm like, okay, cool. I brought it to my mom. Plan failed immediately. She wasn't with it. She hated the idea. And I just so happened to get a full ride scholarship to go to college anyway. So I went and tried it. But college for me was that exposure that you're talking about. It was, and it wasn't a lot. Like it wasn't like my college town was no amazing place. It was a small little farm town with about 1,000, maybe 2,000 people living there. But it was just the mental of getting out of Chicago and figuring out how to navigate this new situation and being put in a lot of challenging situations. I enjoy challenges. I like puzzles. So it was like a big puzzle for me. And that exposure kind of helped me figure out I don't want to stay here too long. So how do I get out of here? And so exposure is, I think it's a tool, is how I would look at it. It's definitely a tool that can be pushed into motivation. But if you don't get it and you don't have it,
Yeah.
you know, it can get tough.
Is you say that one of the things I think about, and I talked about this in the podcast with Coach CJ. Fixed mindset says my talent, my intelligence are fixed. I can't really grow them. I am what I am. And people, what studies have shown is that people who have a fixed mindset, when they are confronted with something that they think they don't have the ability to succeed at, they will either avoid it, they will cheat, they will find someone and compare themselves to someone who they consider to be lesser than so that they can now be successful. So they can be viewed as successful because their identity is wrapped up in that potential.
Right.
But they don't think they have any power to change that. Growth mindset person says, "Oh, I love the challenge, and I believe that there are no limits on me." And so growth mindset people will look at failure as opportunities to learn and opportunities to grow. Fixed mindset people come to the wall and stop. They come to the hurdle and they stop because it's a hurdle. Growth mindset people see the hurdle as a stepping stone to the next thing.
Yes.
Okay, and so I think a lot of young people in that stage of preparation have a fixed mindset that this is too hard.
Yeah.
I can't do this because this is hard. Would you agree with that?
I would agree to it being hard, but I don't know it because I'm not gonna say the younger generation like I'm old, but like my generation, it's like not cool to try anymore. And I don't know where that came from.
Mm,
And it might be because I got a lot of old heads around me. So
yeah.
I have a lot of old heads around me. Like my brother is 7 years older than me. So he's got some, like, and that's like one of my best friends. I talk to him all the time. But he's got some years ahead of me. And he's 31 and he's still trying stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I've never looked at trying or failing. Like, and failing, I feel like is very essential. I don't feel like you can succeed without failing a couple of times. Actually, like a lot of times. Because in your failures, you learn how to no longer make those mistakes and you learn to hone and thrive. I feel like you can't get better at anything if you're just good at something. I feel like that leads back to potential. If you're just good at something, you won't work at it.
Mm,
When you're not good at it and you have to work at it and you fail a couple times, you overcome it. And for me at least, I feel better when I overcome something like that.
yeah.
It's not cool to
Try.
try at stuff. You look weak if you fail, and it's just like, dude, I guess.
I
But I don't know.
I have another one of mine, and as you like to call it, my T-shirt saying.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
start a business, dude.
I did. I call it. It's a book. It's called "Word to the Wise."
Word to the wise.
Little bites of wisdom.
Mm.
But here's one of the things: is that anything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
Yeah.
Most people, if you say anything worth doing is worth doing, and they would finish that sentence by saying worth doing well or excellently.
Mhm.
And I say it's worth doing poorly. And the reason that I say that is that stop and think about something that you do well now,
Mhm.
something that you are very good at now.
Mhm.
Think back to the very first time you did it.
Sucked at it.
You sucked at it.
Was
You
horrible
did
at
it
it.
poorly, right?
Horrible at it.
You were horrible. The
Horrible.
first time you
Yes.
picked up a saxophone, you sounded like
Like a
somebody
duck.
was
Yes.
stepping on a duck.
Quite literally.
Yeah, right. The first time you
Yes.
picked up the shot put, you like almost dropped it on your foot, right?
No, right.
But how do you get a scholarship? How do you cut a record? How do you do those things well?
Mhm.
Is because you failed
Mhm.
and you learned, and you failed and you learned, and you failed and you kept trying and you failed. But then why did you continue to do it? Because it was worthy. It
Yeah.
was worthwhile.
Yes.
And because it was worthwhile, you continue to try and fail. And now you're good at it because it was worthwhile and you did it poorly the first time.
Yeah.
And so I think that that idea that it's not cool to try limits your capacity to get great at anything. What do they say? It takes 10,000 hours to become a master.
Yeah. Something. Yeah.
If you don't spend the 10,000 hours, it ain't worthy.
Yeah.
If you're spending 10,000 hours, you're saying it's worthy. But if you don't believe it, you ain't gonna spend the 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
What do you think has been the biggest challenge of your crossover from boyhood to manhood?
So I'm 24, right?
Mhm.
Outside looking in, he's out of college. He should probably have a job. He should probably have somewhere he stay on his own. And he should be figuring out a lot of things. But they don't know me. They don't know my goals, my aspirations, and nothing like that. But people are gonna naturally set expectations on you. And we're human. You're gonna hear it and it's gonna weigh on you. For me, I had to put a nice little wall between people's expectations that they would put on me and what are mine. And another thing that was very challenging in my transition was how I pray. I had to change how I pray a couple times.
Hmm.
So I would think those two things would probably be my most challenging things, is dealing with outside noise and actually figuring out internally what I want to do.
If you could write a letter to your 16-year-old self, your 18-year-old self, what might that letter include?
You hitting them today, boy. I'm tell you. You are hitting them today.
Yeah.
16-year-old self, I would say it's okay to not have it all figured out. Because when you're 24, you're still not going to have it all figured out. So breathe, relax. It's okay. 18-year-old self, I would probably tell myself at 18 to lean into God a lot more. Because 18, I'm starting college. So I've been in private schools my whole life. I went to a Christian school from elementary to middle school all the way to 8th grade, and then I went to a Christian school from high school. So when you're in a Christian school, you're surrounded by Christians. You have a class actually that teaches you about this thing called the Bible. But it was so normal that I would say it lost its like potency or its significance. Cause it's like, yeah, that's just, my religion, whatever. It's no big deal. 18, you go to college. It's public college. You get to see all of it. You get to hear all of it. And you get to hear everyone's different perspectives and their different religions and different backgrounds. No judgment. You got your team, I got my team, cool. But it definitely is like, if you don't have something to truly believe in, I could say like I know stuff. Like I knew the word backwards and forwards, cool. But I had to actually question myself, was it something I truly believed in? And I didn't figure out my real faith in it until I was like 18 or 19. I would say more 19 than 18. Knowing all that I know, understanding all that I understood, it just takes like an actual faith thing for me. And it took a leap to actually consider myself a real Christian. I tell people all the time I didn't become a Christian until I was 19. Went to Christian schools the whole time, but I didn't become a Christian until I was 19.
What does that mean?
For me?
Becoming.
I would say not even become a Christian. I would say I didn't accept the faith fully until I was 19.
Okay.
That's what I would say, actually. I didn't fully accept it. As much knowledge is one thing, but you have to actually believe it.
So we're in a time when deconstruction is the norm. The deconstruction of one's faith. Taking everything that you've heard and believe. I even talked to one of your friends recently who told me, yeah, it's so interesting because you all are saying almost the exact opposites. One of your friends said to me, yeah, I've been in Christian schools all of my life. It's not mine. And it's just what I've been told. And they're not leaning into, they're leaning out of. There's this whole deconstruction of everything that they've been told for 24 years. Now you're saying I'm leaning into it. I'm not deconstructing, I'm constructing.
Yeah.
I'm reconstructing in some ways. And deconstruction is okay.
Yeah.
But if you deconstruct everything and don't rebuild, you end up with a
lot of bricks.
You end up with a lot of bricks in a wasteland.
Right, yeah.
So how in this time when deconstruction of faith is the norm for your, I'm not even going to say your generation, I think it's become the norm in the world. How are you, what makes you want to lean into it and reconstruct, not just deconstruct?
For me, it was personal, like a personal incident for me. Not incident, just situation. And it was, for me, I was stripped of all of what I could do because I did everything to my knowledge that I could do in the situation that I'm talking about. So there was nothing else that I could have done about it. And I hate feeling that feeling of vulnerable and powerless almost. So I was like, there's nothing else that I can do about this. There's nothing no one around me can do about this. I ain't got nothing left. And I'm like, oh yeah, wait a minute. I do got one thing. I do got that one thing in my back pocket. I can try that. See what happens. Because at that point, what do we have to lose?
Yeah.
And I think that was what it was. I got to a point where it was like, we've tried everything in our knowledge and our power, what we know, what we can do.
Yeah.
Let's go try this. The sad truth of it is until I started to reconstruct and understand it, I think I called you a couple times in college where we had this conversation. The reconstruction was just me understanding that the whole time I was thinking I was doing something, I wasn't doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I am strictly just a pawn on the chessboard. That's
Mm.
all it is. But until you step outside of yourself and kind of look at how blessed you are and just look at like what your situation is, and then you view other people's situations and theirs, then you realize it's not really you the whole time. That was for me, is what it was. I didn't realize that it wasn't me doing all of the work.
Mm.
It wasn't me doing majority of the work. It was just me showing up. So, but to those who, I think deconstruction leads with questions, because that's what I had. I had a lot of questions, because a lot of it makes sense but doesn't make sense if you base just Christianity alone. If you go talk Christianity to a stranger, you might sound crazy
Mm-hmm.
because they don't understand the faith of it. But like if you really think about it, just straight up and down, we believe in a dude who was born from a virgin,
Mm-hmm.
comes on earth, lives about 30 some years, dies for me, you, and everybody else. He knows none of us personally, but he gives his life for all of us. So we can kick it with him later in this little afterlife party. Right? When you say that to a guy outside, you know what I mean? Like
Cray cray.
you right. You
It's
should
cray
like,
cray.
okay, someone's been in the cookie jar. He's a little off. Cool. But until you actually, you know, sit with it and let it resonate, and you go back and you register in the word, and you get connections with other people who can agree or not judge you for thinking how you think, and you gravitate to a personal relationship, then that's something else. So there's no problem with deconstruction. It's just you got to be able to find a way to have that personal relationship with God come back to you somehow, some way.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a household where questions were viewed as negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people come from that. A
Yep.
lot of people come from households where questions is negative,
Right.
which in my mind made no sense.
Right.
Because why would he make me in his likeness and his image and give me this gift of curiosity if I can't ask questions?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I have these questions. Someone's got to have the answers. He gave us a manual.
Yeah.
Go read the manual.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe the manual can't, maybe you don't understand the manual, and that's possible too, or whatever the case may be. That's where conversations of prayer is. And this is how my prayer changed so many times from 18 to 24. Because a lot of my prayers was kind of like a wish list.
Mm-hmm.
Help me get through this, or whatever this is. I don't know what the plan is no more. I'm gonna leave it up to you. So wherever we go, you leading. And I kind of just let go of the control that I thought I had. So that's, I think, where my relationship switched over. And I think that's where my construction started to build back up, was understanding that I am just a piece.
Yeah.
Understanding my role. I have a role here, obviously, because I'm still waking up every day, but I'm
Yeah.
just the piece so far.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking of something I wrote a while back. We're living in times when deconstruction of belief systems is a popular practice, but the deconstruction that is not followed by reconstruction leaves unstable, if not uninhabitable spaces. I think that as I think about that at that stage, in that preparation stage, you are also looking to establish your own space,
mhm.
your own
Yeah,
identity.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
it's very natural to pull away from everything that you know that you've been taught
Mhm.
in an effort to find your own space and your own face
Absolutely.
and your own identity,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
But that deconstruction is almost like, oh, that means everything that I've been taught is bad. Everything I've been taught is wrong. And if it's because I've been taught it, well, that's indoctrination. Okay, it's and because I don't know anything different.
Mhm.
The fact that it's the only thing you've been taught doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Mhm.
It may be because it was the thing that the people in your life thought this is what was best.
Mhm.
This particular thing is about faith.
Mhm.
And how do you not just simply toss everything? Is there anything that can be done in that season to help young men in preparation not end up living in uninhabitable spaces.
Is there anything to prevent that?
Yeah,
It definitely relies on the young man.
yeah,
It lies on his shoulders. I believe that sincerely, because I'm not gonna say that there's nothing that can be done, but it's limits.
yeah.
Because faith is a choice.
Mm.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, I wear this cross as a choice. You know what I mean? Like
I thought you wore the cross that was your name.
that too,
Okay.
but no, I mean, it's cool, but like no, it's
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we could sit here all day and we could talk about, oh, it's his environment, or someone has to go pour into him. He has to want it.
Mm.
That's what free will is. That was the gift. That was the trade-off. It's like, hey, y'all can go do your own thing, but anytime you want me, I'm right here. That's really what it is. So you have to. It falls on the shoulders of the young man. I believe that, or the young woman, or whoever. You know, it
Mhm.
falls on them because it is a choice at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
and I mean, everyone's different. For me, it took a certain situation to happen. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's a certain conversation. You know, whatever it may be. But I don't think that there's nothing that can be done. There probably are some preventions that can be done, sure, but it boils down to choice.
Yeah.
It does boil down to wanting a relationship with God and wanting to believe
Yeah.
in it.
I think another one practical thing, and I think I'm in 100% agreement with you, but I think there is one practical thing that I would say, if I'm going to look at it this way, on my side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I and you alluded to it already. I think that there does need to be a space, um, a grace space created by significant people in that person's life that gives them a space where asking questions is encouraged
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
supported.
Yes.
I said this, and I know you went to a Christian school,
Mm-hmm.
and I began to say this as I think I met you my first year there.
Mm-hmm.
It was my very first year there.
Mm-hmm.
And then following students for the next couple of years and then into high school, into college, one of the things that I learned watching that process was a lot of kids in Christian environments are giving the answers to a fill in the blank test.
Yeah. It becomes artificial.
Yeah.
It does. It
Yeah.
does.
You know
It
the
becomes
answers.
yeah. It becomes artificial. It's like I don't, and I don't want to. I don't want to hurt any feelings here. I never.
I will.
Okay, but I've never enjoyed like the idea of memorizing Bible verses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I do get it. Because right now, 24 years old, there's a couple of verses I could just rip off. Fine. But it becomes more about the verse opposed to the context of where the verse lies in.
Mm-hmm.
I can do all things through Christ strengthens me, for example, right? If you just say that out loud, it sounds like you can go move a mountain if you believe in Jesus. It's not the case.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You have to read the context.
Mm-hmm.
So memorizing verses, and this is just one example of how it can feel artificial or feel like it's like just the answers. Knowing the answers doesn't always help you. It can be a preference point that you can return to, sure, but it takes wanting the relationship, one, and then two, it takes understanding the entire story. If I'm just memorizing verses, anybody can memorize a verse
Mm-hmm.
as long as they can read, in repetition. That's just memorizing a verse. But unless you understand the significance of where it resonates in the word, it's just knowing words by heart.
So what I would I'm not even gonna call it pushback, but my response to that would be this. And you're right. I remember when I was doing student ministry back many years ago, and working with kids. And I remember this girl was in this program where she was in the state competition for memory verses. It was a state competition, and she went like to the state championship. because how fast can you recall these verses? So we were sitting in a study one day, and she was one of my student leaders. So I knew the week before she had quoted these verses for me. So the next week I asked her, I said, "What was that verse you quoted last week?" And she went, "What?" I said, "You." I said, "Just say it again.
Yeah.
You said it last week." I said, "You were telling me this verse for your competition." She said, "That was for the competition. I flushed that. That's gone."
Yes.
So from that standpoint,
Yeah.
if the mindset
Yeah.
is that, yes, you're right, it's a waste of time. But when you understand the memorization is not for the sake of information,
Right.
but it's for the sake of learning and developing a connection with the relationship,
Right.
not the religion,
Right.
for the transformation, not the information.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand that, now that scripture memory becomes more important.
Absolutely.
And
it
so
doesn't have, it has its potency and
right,
its significance. Yeah.
right. And so therefore now there's power. There's
Mm-hmm.
power in that. Uh, that's why there's a scripture in Psalm 119, 9-11. It says, how shall a young man keep his way pure? By keeping according to God's word. And I'm not quoting it correctly, but he says, "Thy word have I hid in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
that I might not sin against you." Hiding it in your heart is scripture memory is one of those disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. If it's just activity, it means nothing.
Yeah.
It's just word. My uncle used to say, "Them's just words. Them's just words." If all you're doing is memorizing it for information.
Yep.
But when you're memorizing and you're putting it in your heart because you're thinking through it,
when it has appliance
and it has an application,
then it
now
has
it becomes
importance.
different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's different. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that is important. And with that, what have you been taught about manhood?
It seems like what I've taken from manhood is you're a leader, and a lot of people are relying on you. No one seems to care what you're going through. That's a big one. That's actually a really big one. So, as far as male sensitivity goes, that's a gray area too. Because if it's from in home, it's like, hey man, get over yourself. It's not a big deal. As I got older, people were like, hey, it's okay to like actually like have emotions. But that was something that we grew into. What else did I learn about manhood? I don't know. It can be good and bad, I guess. It all depends on the man you learn it from.
So
that's what I will say.
How have those lessons that you've been taught, how have those things defined or shaped you?
I learned only apply to those men. Because that's what they were taught, or that's what they figured out. Manhood for me now is how I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out based on information that I feel is valuable. So if you can tell me two separate things, one of them I'm gonna hear and be like, I can keep that. The other one I'm gonna hear, that can go somewhere else. I don't need that part. So it has shaped me now in being able to decide what I want to add to me and what I don't want a part of me. Because I've been blessed to see prime examples of boys who are now 40 and men who are now 40. I've gotten to see both in a lot of up close and personal relationships. I'm talking grown man, 40 years old. He on the game every day with his son. So now his son is gonna see that. He don't go to work. He just he on the game all day. That's what he does.
Yeah.
I've gotten to see that.
Yeah.
Up close and personal. And then I've gotten to see he go to work every day. He takes care of his wife, takes care of his family. He's a respectful, upheld person. The people around him, they respect him of who he is. I just see the two characters and I go, which one I want to do? I want to do that. Now, I want to do the respectful role, but I got to do it my way. He got his own way of doing it, and I can ask him questions to help or whatever, sure. But at the end of the day, I have to shape Cam based on what I believe is essential to add to myself.
This may be a little bit of a twist on this question. What have you observed about manhood and the culture? Not just so it's what you've taught is one thing. What are some things that you believe that you have observed in our current culture, or as you're growing up, you have just observed it? Nobody told you. And let me give you an example. I told you there's a man I know, friend of mine, who said his dad taught him. His dad was a boxer, professional boxer.
Mm-hmm.
His dad taught him you're supposed to have a woman in every city you go to.
Mm.
And he told him this is the way you operate as a man. In your 24 years, what are some things you have observed that people tell you manhood is?
You are a man. You are in charge of you, kind of.
Mm.
You have to figure out whatever you got to figure out on your own accord and do it as you see fit.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Those are my basis observations. Now, that's a very when you just said that example though, because you said he was taught that.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that would fall more under observation.
Mm-mm. No, he was
told that.
He was told that. That's why I use that example. His dad told this is what it means to be a man. You are supposed to do this. And he told me that because then he came back and said, I turned around and taught my nephew the exact same thing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He said, this is my greatest regret in life. My nephew bought it. I figured out that wasn't good. He differentiated. His nephew couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And his nephew lives that way.
Mm.
And he when the guy told me this, he was in tears. He said, it's the greatest regret in my life. Because I turned around and taught what had been taught. And they learned it and internalized it. I learned it. I internalized it for a while, but I was able to change. He says, my nephew can't. So there's a difference between what you observe and what you are actually intentionally and put it in your life.
Yeah, I would say, well, back to it, self-control. And I think what I've observed is I've observed a lot of situations of just taking care of other people before yourself taking care of a lot of people. That's what I have seen a lot of.
Yeah.
Is you're important, but if you have other priorities, like a family, for example, they come before you. Mm-hmm. Get comfortable with coming second. I've seen that a lot. So,
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Both.
Okay. How is it bad?
Bad because if you keep putting yourself second, you'll become third, and then fourth, and then fifth, and then sixth, and you'll ignore what needs to be done for yourself.
Yeah.
Good because I think it's very important for children to play.
Yeah.
I didn't understand I was only going to be a child once until it was over. I think a lot of people don't get that. You're only a child one time, for real.
Yeah.
So it's very important for children to enjoy being children. If you have a significant other, it's very important to make sure they are respected and well kept as well. So it's very important to take care of your responsibilities, especially if they have been given to you. So yeah, handle your business, absolutely. But handle your business includes you. Handling all of your business includes taking that time for yourself and going, hey, are we okay?
Yeah.
I think a lot of men that I've seen, they miss that last part.
Yeah.
In the sense of they're comfortable not being okay if that means everyone else around them is okay.
Yeah.
If the kid's good, the wife good, I'm all right. That becomes okay for them. And
Yeah.
that could be, that's why I say it could be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that idea of very important thing about self-care. They say you put on your own mask first on the airplane. They always say to put on your own mask first.
Yeah.
It's really hard to help somebody else when you're dead.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
It
I don't.
is.
You may be selfish, but I'm being
Is it?
facetious. Yeah,
Because like at that point, and I hear that all the time. Is it selfish?
I was being facetious.
I
when
know, but
said that. Yeah,
it's like people think that's real.
they think it's for real.
Like,
Exactly.
They take that serious. Like, oh my God, he's so selfish. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. If you're dead, it's just hard for me to help you
Yeah.
when I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is really important that you learn. I think for as men, I think we have to learn that it is good to be selfless. That
Yes.
is a very positive thing
Mhm.
to be selfless. But I think it's also a very positive thing to be in a condition emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, socially, relationally,
Yes.
where you have something to offer, and you recognize that I have something to offer, because you are worth fighting for.
Mm.
And so I am good. And I think I was looking for something, but I think a lot of times we don't fight for ourselves. Here it is. We stop fighting against yourself and start fighting for yourself, because you are worthy of fighting for.
Absolutely.
And so if if you're not taking care of yourself physically, you won't be available for your family. I don't care how hard you work, but if you're dead, you can't work.
Yes.
If you can't walk, if you can't talk, whatever. So that's important. Do you feel like you, at this point, you have a healthy view and perspective on manhood?
I'll say yeah. I'll say yes.
That is overwhelmingly unconvincing.
I would say I think a healthy perspective. We're talking about my own personal journey of manhood. Oh, my journey, yes.
Do you feel like you have a personal, a healthy perspective on manhood?
Yeah, I think there's bumps in the road as just like anyone else, and I'm not perfect, but I think overall, yeah, I think I do pretty good for myself.
Okay.
I do. I think I've had a lot of great examples around me, and I think I have my own passions of how I want myself to be viewed, and I think those keep me in line. So I think overall, yes, I would say I have a healthy perspective and a healthy view of what manhood is. I think society has a view of manhood that doesn't always match with what we would view manhood is.
What are some societal differences?
Sole providers. I hear that a lot. And it goes back to that self-care thing. You hear a lot of we are providers. We're supposed to be providers. It's part of us as who we are. But it's almost like we're just tools and no longer people. And that's where I'm like, I can't get behind that one. I'm sorry. It's there's a saying, I can't think of it, but it's like, that's it. Being an anchor is the quickest way to drown. So you can hold down everybody and keep everybody else stable, sure. But if you're down there, you ain't got no air, you dead, like you just said. And after a while, you're not going to be of service no more. So I think society has a view that we are solely just tools, and I think that's unhealthy. But me personally, I think I have a solid perspective and a solid, healthy environment and viewpoint of what I want my manhood to look like and what I have so far done. Still very new to manhood, very fresh, very, very fresh, very young. I got time to make mistakes, to fail a couple times, and to grow and to evolve and figure out even more things. So, like I said, the conversation I'm having with you today, in 10 years, is going to be completely different.
A few years ago, I asked some young men in my mentoring program, do we really need dads?
Yeah.
And there's 60% of the boys in the room said no.
Mm-hmm.
Fathers were unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I think about that statement, I also turned around and asked them, how many of you want to be dads? And all of them except for one raised their hand. I said, wait a minute, let's process what you just said to me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's process the logical, really the logical fallacy of what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
You just said that fathers were unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
But yet all of you all want to be
You
something
want to
that
be
is
unnecessary.
unnecessary. Yeah. I said, so what that tells me is that you believe that your presence, you add nothing to the equation, which means that you have bought into the cultural lie that men are nothing other than sperm donors and support checks. So, because you're not going to stop doing those things that that will make you become a father.
Right.
So if you're not going to stop doing those
Right.
things,
Right.
then you are willing to produce children for which you feel like you have no responsibility because you bring nothing to the table. Mm-hmm. So as we close this out, and I really appreciate your coming on to the podcast to talk about this.
Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, man, this is good stuff. This is good
fun.
stuff. This is what, I would say kind of in my own closing with this, rolling in from that last statement. I really want, one of the reasons I started this podcast is that I was figuring out a way, how do I get before young men without getting those young men before me? Mm-hmm. I can only call so many meetings, and why would anybody who doesn't know me show up? Right. But everybody got one of these in their hands, and so I said, you know what? Let me get a word before you that you don't have to be before me. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the reasons why I started, and why this particular topic of fatherhood, what we've been exploring since January, fatherhood, manhood, and marriage, navigating those waters. And one of the things that I really wanted to do, based upon my mantra of boys play, young men prepare, men perform. Mm-hmm. But when young men fail to prepare, they become men who continue to play. Mm-hmm. I want young men to understand you have a responsibility to prepare yourself, because you will be put in a role where you are expected to perform. And if you haven't practiced, you haven't prepared, you will fail. Yep. You're not just going to play, you're going to fail. Yep. And when you fail, you probably are not going to fail by yourself, because you will be in a position where your playing has given you, your playing and your living has put tentacles where you've attached other people to your life. Now your inability.
Tentacles is a bar. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, but no, those tentacles. You've wrapped yourself.
Yeah, you've brought other people into
and brought other people into that. And if you're just by yourself, okay, jump off the cliff.
Yep.
But now when you've tentacled yourself to other people, mm-hmm. and you now do not have the capacity to perform, now you've hurt other people. Yeah. And that is why our culture, our society, we need young men who take seriously the responsibility to prepare themselves for the responsibility of manhood, mm-hmm. the responsibility of being those providers. And again, there's women who make a lot of money. I'm not talking about your capacity to make money. Mm-hmm. Being a provider, being that protector, being that there's gatekeepers within the community is critical, because somebody needs you. That somebody needs protection. Somebody needs wisdom. Somebody needs understanding. And when we don't have men who have been placed in those roles of responsibility, taking that responsibility, then we're left with with irresponsible people who do irresponsible things. And the result is that our communities become uninhabitable. And so I really want to just encourage young men, if you're reading this, if you're listening to this, take seriously, okay, you got your training wheels on, that's great, but your training wheels can't stay.
Yeah.
It's eventually the training wheels come off. When they do, keep pedaling. Keep pedaling, keep doing what you're supposed to do, because somebody, whether you recognize it or not, is looking at you.
Yeah.
And I often say this, leaders are people, say, well, who is a leader? Who are my leaders? If somebody's looking at you in admiration, they're looking to you for information, you have influence. If you have influence, congratulations, you are a leader. And as a leader, that means that somebody has attached themselves to you, whether you wanted them to or not. And now you have a level of responsibility to make sure where you are leading them is someplace that you are not going to be embarrassed that they followed, or you're not going to have regret that they followed you there. And so I just really want young men, don't keep planting seeds of foolishness, because seeds of foolishness will reap whirlwinds of foolishness.
Yeah.
And seeds of chaos will reap whirlwinds, will reap hurricanes of chaos. And we need young men who are willing to step up and say, no, I'm going to take the mantle of manhood, and I'm going to perform in manhood the way that I'm supposed to. And that is going to look different for everybody. Everybody has a different role.
Absolutely.
But I really want young men to step up, stop playing. There's a time to play, but there's a time to put away the games, and there's a time to perform. I want you to be ready to do that. So
absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Real Life Matters, where we are talking with real life people about real life issues and coming up with real life solutions. This is your real life Jason Perry. Look forward to seeing you on our very next episode of Real Life Matters.